The internet is full of competing narratives. This means that one person or one group has a particular ideology and a particular vision for how reality should be. And this usually runs in contrast with another group who has a different ideology, basically a set of stories or beliefs about what reality should be and how it is and how it works. These run in contrast to one another, usually in a contradictory fashion. And these groups and people typically don't get along well, I'm sure, as you notice, politics being probably the most obvious example of this. So in this video, I want to help you to actually start to go beyond just narrative warfare. Why does this actually matter for you? Why does this do you any good? First of all, on the internet, you're bound to run into this. And it's going to cause a lot of confusion. And if you actually care about something like truth or accurate sense making, this is fairly important. And something a bit more personal. Your actual survival depends on your mind's ability to make good sense of reality. What foods do you eat? What kind of people do you relate to? What environments should you live in? Right? What kind of career should you do? How do you navigate conflict in relationships? Your daily life is basically guided by your ideas of what reality is and how it works. It's guided by your ability to make sense of reality. So if you have a poor ability to make sense of reality, this is going to directly impact your survival. This is going to impact your income, your relationships, your health, all the things that you deeply, deeply care about because you need them to survive. And if you're able to make better sense of reality, this allows you to navigate reality well. Just think about it like this. Your mind is basically creating a map of reality. And if you have a poor map that isn't very detailed, it's not very accurate, you can't navigate the terrain very well. You can't navigate the territory very well. Whereas if you have a map that is actually, representing the territory very well, your ability to navigate reality is going to be simply a lot better. Your ability to get your needs met, your ability to discover what is true, all this is going to be a lot better. So keep in mind that your daily behaviors are basically guided by underlying systems that are deeply dependent on how you are perceiving reality. So let's get into some of these solutions for navigating competing narratives. First of all, you actually have to limit consumption time and cultivate presence. This is a very stressful sort of thing, right? When you have all this contradictory information, you don't have much depth on any of it. It's very confusing. You don't really know what to believe. When you're jumping from video to video to video, piece of content to piece of content, this creates a lot of chaos in your mind. This constant distraction harms your mind. When your mind's not well, you simply can't make a good sense of reality. When you're in reactivity mode, when you're just in survival mode, when you're jumping around from distraction to distraction to distraction, you just simply can't understand life very well. You lack the depth that you actually have to develop. So you got to practice mindfulness. You got to practice self-reflection. You got to practice presence to develop genuine clarity and have a lot of strict boundaries with the internet. A lot of us are just very deeply addicted to the phone, to the internet nowadays. Of course, this is extremely damaging for mental health. Moving on, you got to distinguish higher versus lower perspectives. The truth about human psychology is that we're not all at the same level of psychological development. We're not all at the same level of consciousness. Some people are at higher levels of development than others. It's more psychologically developed, more emotionally, more spiritually, etc. Spiral dynamics is a developmental psychology model. I recently did a video on it. Go check it out. It's going to explain these sort of lower to higher perspectives. And it's going to basically allow you to zoom out. You get the big picture. Because when you're stuck in narrative warfare, you're just kind of stuck in these smaller picture narratives. Whereas when you're able to zoom out, you can see, okay, this is kind of what's going on here. People at this level don't really get along with people at that level. And this is why. So you need that capacity to zoom out and see the bigger picture in which all these narratives are fitting so that you're not always so confused. So you're not confused as to why atheists and Christians don't get along and this person and that person don't get along and liberals and conservatives and X, Y, and Z, right? You're basically making more space for all these worldviews to exist in without needing to entirely throw one away because it threatens you, or to cling on to one desperately because your ego is so identified with it and invested in it. So you have to care about epistemic development and recognize more evolved perspectives. Okay, what is epistemic development? This sounds very nerdy, but this is very important because it basically goes hand in hand with your ability to make good sense of reality. Epistemic development is basically how we know what we know. It's about questioning how we arrive at truth and what makes something truly known. And people at higher levels of the spiral and spiral dynamics do a better job at this. They're more epistemically developed. They actually care about this. This is an actual value that they have. How many people have you ever heard? How many people in your life have ever told you to care about epistemic development? Probably fucking none. So moving on is analyze ideas based on integration, maturity, depth, and truthfulness, as opposed to emotional appeal, survival agendas, ego/identity, people who are deeply identified with the information that they're giving out, clinging or needing something to be true. They need their ideology to be true because they're so attached to it. They're so emotionally invested to it, and reactivity. Right? These are like completely opposite ends of this kind of spectrum. So moving on, developing discernment and epistemic awareness. Essentially, you have to train yourself to question why a narrative is being pushed and who benefits from it. Because of course, a lot of people here on social media, they have a particular narrative, they push it, and they make a lot of money from it, right? There's a whole lot of survival going on here, and you actually need to recognize that. You need to recognize that basically people don't give a crap about what's true. People don't even care at all about like the truthfulness of the information that they're putting out. They're putting things out strictly just to make money. They don't care about the impacts of it. They don't care about how it affects the information ecosystem or people's minds. They simply don't care, right? Personally, I like rack my mind over this one because, you know, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with influencing people and working with them one-to-one. It's something I deeply care about. I really couldn't do this kind of work if I didn't care about this. I would quit. But people don't share that same value set. Some people just want to make a lot of money. They don't care whether it's true or not. You know the rest. So who's actually benefiting from the particular narratives that are being pushed, right? The narrative has a sort of survival element to it. So moving on is you have to strengthen inner stillness and direct perception. I talked about this briefly at the beginning, but basically you got to meditate daily to cultivate a silent, undistracted mind that's able to kind of perceive without distortion. You need self-awareness on your mind. You need self-awareness around your thoughts, your ideas, your reactions, your emotions, your attachments. You need to start bringing consciousness into your life, conscious awareness and attention to yourself. You need to prioritize deep contemplation and reflection over reactive consumption. Moving on is prioritize direct experience over secondhand knowledge. So whenever possible, verify information through direct experience. Take an idea and test it. Don't just adopt it, actually test it against experience. You have to take the idea and apply it to experience. And if it collapses over and over and over again, that idea was probably not very good. It probably wasn't very accurate. But if the idea holds up against experience over and over and over and over again, you're testing it against actual direct experience, there's something true there. Okay, what's true about it, right? We can integrate that nugget of wisdom. So prioritize your direct experience, embodying knowledge and applying it to real life instead of just keeping it totally conceptual. Next, context matters, right? Information doesn't just like exist loosely. Information exists within a system, within a context, within a particular system, right? I'll just leave it at that. So you have to actually study things like psychology, sociology, spirituality in order to get a good idea of how narratives form and what they're actually doing. That's why I have a free book list. You can go and check it out and just buy the books, right? I organized it by psychology, relations, like all this stuff. Just go check it out. It's free. Purchase a few. Start going through it. History is also very useful for seeing how humans have operated over time and allowing yourself to see the large-scale patterns of behavior that continuously reenact themselves. Moving on is identify which perspectives serve survival agendas versus truth-seeking. This is the most important distinction that you can actually make here, is the difference between survival and truth, because survival is going to corrupt and bias everything to get its needs met, And truth just cares about truth simply because it's more selfless and it's more open to just what actually is the case. Whereas survival comes from ego, it's needy, it's clingy, it needs something. There's a particular agenda, there's a goal that's trying to be met, whether it's making more money, having more sex, and none of this is wrong. None of this is wrong. Like, learn how to navigate these needs, really integrate this stuff. But when the information that a person's providing is wrong so that they can continuously benefit in this sort of survival-oriented way, this is a massive error. This, of course, is just very low integrity on the person, very low consciousness as well. It's sickening. It's actually very sickening. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about survival versus truth. So survival has a lot to do with protecting the ego, protecting the tribe that I'm identified with, protecting the ideology. Truth just seeks truth regardless of comfort. Truth is willing to question the most deeply cherished beliefs, no matter how emotionally attached or invested they actually are in it. The person actually is in it. Moving on is the sort of emotional tone of survival. Fear, outrage, defensiveness, versus truth is curiosity, openness, equanimity. Moving on, survival has a lot to do with cherry picking data in order to conform to biases, whereas people who are interested in truth are very willing to actually challenge their biases. They will proactively do this. I will literally use AI. I'll be talking to it and I will purposely ask it to challenge my worldview. What am I missing? What am I lacking integration in? You can literally use AI to do this. It's very useful. It's a very, very powerful tool. Next, survival agendas are very rigid and inflexible. They're very dogmatic. Truth is usually open, adaptive, and willing to revise beliefs. Again, really check out spiral dynamics here because this is going to be extremely illuminating, right? All this kind of stuff, it sounds kind of nice to do, but there's a particular direction that you can actually move in that will align you with what's true and what's even more genuine for you, right? A higher quality of life for yourself. So moving on is flexibility, depth of thinking. So survival is very black and white, as you can probably tell, whereas truth is nuanced, seeing multiple perspectives and integrating a whole bunch of multiple perspectives. There's usually a lot of depth there, right? So someone who cares about truth will actually look into the perspective over time so that they comprehend it, whereas people who are, they just care about survival, they don't really do deep research into the actual thing. They're not going to read a book. They're just not even going to pick up a book and read it. They don't even care enough to do that, which is the bare minimum. Next, survival cares about attachment to identity. So we're overly attached to ideas that we believe ourselves to be. We're attached to ideas that form our sense of ego as human beings. Whereas people who are more interested in truth, they view beliefs as temporary models of reality, things that change, evolve, and they can either be proven false or, things just can be added on it. Basically, they're temporary and constantly changing. So survival distorts truth for survival purposes and for comfort. People who care about truth accept truth even if it's painful and it really requires you to make a change that you might be unwilling to make. Moving on, people who are in survival, they dismiss, they attack, they ridicule. They stay basically in comfort, they avoid challenge, they seek certainty at all costs, and they cling to ideology. The opposite is accepting uncertainty, embracing paradox, investigating and considering something deeply, valuing discomfort as a path to evolution, and basically wisdom, insight, and expansion. So the thing about everything that I just said here is that it sounds very nice on paper, but you, again, need that bigger picture to kind of orient yourself around. It's nice to be open-minded. It's nice to explore that other perspective. But when you don't have an actual framework for how does the human mind develop, ego development theory, spiral dynamics, moral development theory, when you don't really know the direction that mankind's consciousness is moving in, you're going to get lost. And this is a very useful tool for basically understanding the direction that we're going in and integrating each level of development. Moving on is simply optimizing your information diet. So cutting out clickbait nonsense, outrage, like outrage media, people who are just always mad reacting to stuff, things like that. And surface level takes, right? This is all bullshit for the most part. This is not serious sense making. This is just stuff for clicks, obviously. Right? Follow thinkers who prioritize things like depth, wisdom, nuance over tribalism. Right? A lot of people, they have their ideology and they're attached to a group. Most ideologies basically are attached to some kind of groupthink. And we want to like get acceptance from that group. Right? This is kind of deeply wired into our psychology. Right? You look into evolutionary psychology. We want acceptance from our group. And questioning the ideology of our group often doesn't lead to that. Basically putting us stuck, or putting us deeper and more stuck into that particular narrative. So I'm not actually asking you for a little thing here. That's the funny part about this. If you really care about your self-actualization and raising your consciousness and all this kind of stuff, this actually isn't a 15-minute solution. I've been working on this stuff since I was 18. Right, I'm 25 now. 25 and a half. So this isn't like a quick fix. It's like you have to really investigate life. This is a big shift in your value system as a human being. You have to care about questioning and truth just for the sake of it. And be willing to sacrifice your most cherished ideas. The ideas that you cling to out of survival. The ideas that you're identified with. You have to be willing to just let go of your certainty. To let go of your emotional attachments to things, and to even call out a lot of shadow elements working inside of you, calling out the difficult emotions that keep you clinging on to a particular ideology. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Other than that, I'm doing one-to-one coaching. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take it easy.